Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, Fox fail. Fox News failed to persuade Donald Trump to appear in last night's Iowa debate. That in turn prompted a dramatic drop in the ratings. Miranda Kahn has more on the numbers, the frontrunner, and a former Iowa winner who's a determined underdog.
JD, politicians seek votes, broadcasters seek ratings, and last night, Fox News saw a big drop in the number of viewers watching the final Iowa debate. Our parent website, Newsmax.com, reports that the Trumpless debate received the second lowest ratings of this campaign cycle. Low numbers also concern one-time Iowa winner Mike Huckabee. The former Arkansas governor appeared at the undercard debate and closed his argument by reminding Iowans of why he was their choice in 2008. Listen now as Governor Mike Huckabee makes his last-ditch pitch to Iowa voters and reminding them of why he received the most support at the very same caucus 8 years ago.
Hello, Iowa. It's me. And you know me. You gave me the largest number of votes in the history of the Iowa caucus 8 years ago. And I think you did it because you trusted me. You believed that I had your best interest at heart. When I was governor, I had a little plaque in my office, in the governor's office, and it simply said this: "Come, let us reason together." I believe the next president needs to put that plaque in the Oval Office.
Governor Huckabee and 2012 Iowa winner Rick Santorum then made their way to Drake University, attending Donald Trump's benefit event for veterans.
I want to say how grateful I am to Donald Trump for inviting us here, because the easy thing for him to do is to simply ignore that anybody else cares about veterans, and he's not that kind of person. And I want to say thank you, Donald Trump, for asking Rick Santorum and me, and I think he would have let any of the other candidates come. And for reasons that maybe I don't understand, they're not here. Some of them because they had a slot at 8 o'clock. I had nothing to do at 8 o'clock tonight.
High noon for all these candidates comes next Monday night, as you know, when the caucuses convene all across the state of Iowa.
And we will be covering that. We'll be all over it. And speaking of the Iowa caucuses and this prelude in the final hours of campaigning, we're very pleased that Mike Huckabee joins us now by phone from Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome back to Newsmax Prime, Governor.
Thank you, J.D. Great to be with you and Miranda today.
You know, it was a very busy night for you last night with those two high-profile events. And we mentioned the fact that you won Iowa in 2008. Can you put your finger on what's different this time around?
J.D., one of the things that I think all of us noticed is that there is a very strong sense of anger and rage among the voters. But one of the things that is so different is that one candidate is clearly sucking all of the oxygen out of the room, or certainly, let's say this, taking all of the air on television from all the other candidates. And it's made it very difficult for some of us to even have our messages heard. When people say, are people rejecting your message? I said, no, I'm giving the same message I had 8 years ago. Nothing has changed. And the fact is, they're just not hearing it, because it almost is as if every interview, every newscast is all about Donald Trump. And I congratulate him. I don't, criticize him for that. I congratulate him for manipulating the media in a way that none of the rest of us had the skills to do.
Now, Governor, you've said in the past that if you don't finish in the top three, that you're going to reevaluate your campaign. Do you still feel that way?
Well, not so much whether I'm in the top three. I said it depends on the cluster. There's typically sort of a historical saying, 3 tickets out of Iowa. But here's the point. If one person, let's say, gets 30% and the next one 18 and the next one gets 12 and I'm 12, then 12 may not be enough to go on. But if there are 5 people that all are within about 10, 11 points, there could be 5, 6 people, all of whom could justify going forward from here. No doubt that I've put my resources, my energy, and my hopes on Iowa. And, if I don't do better than people expect me to do, then certainly. But I think we're going to surprise people Monday night. And Governor Terry Branstad just yesterday made the statement. He said, look for Mike Huckabee to surprise people. Now, this is the longest-serving governor in American history, and he certainly knows the Iowa caucuses, and that's his perception of what's going to happen Monday night.
Mike, as we're heading into Monday night, as I understand it, a super PAC that supports you is buying ads attacking Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz, like you, has been strong on the social issues, pro-family, pro-life, obviously a Southern Baptist. What is the differentiation you have with Ted Cruz on social issues and other issues?
Well, JD, I can't speak to the super PAC ads because, as you know, I can't have any conversation or coordination with them of any kind. So I have nothing to do with what a super PAC does. I do think there are contrasts between Ted Cruz and me. Ted has often said that he supports the importance of marriage, but he then goes to Manhattan and says that it's a states issue, that he's not going to get in the middle of it. So that's a very different message that he intimates to the people of Iowa. He's made major policy switches on issues, whether it's ethanol, H-1B visas, Syrian refugees, the trade agreements, and he never seems to come up and say, yep, I changed my mind on immigration or H-1B visas. And that's part of the problem. I think Ted Cruz has been one of the most inconsistent people, but he presents himself as the most consistent conservative. And everybody looks at his real record and says, you know, Ted's taken a lot of different positions, but he's a freshman senator who hasn't one piece of legislation under his belt of any consequence. And we've had a freshman senator, Barack Obama, who came, who didn't have any significant legislation. If a person can't get legislation through the Senate, how do we expect them to be elevated to the office of president and be able to be successful in bringing both Democrats and Republicans together to get significant things done?
Now, Governor, you have criticized Senator Ted Cruz for flip-flopping on the issues, but I want to go back to Donald Trump because he has also changed his position on abortion. Yet you haven't been very critical about that. You attended his rally last night.
Well, I did, and I attended the rally because it was a rally for veterans, and I'm very glad I went because it was an electrifying evening. Trump wasn't even the main speaker. It was a Green Beret veteran who lost his leg in combat who spoke so eloquently about the need for respecting our veterans. But the difference is Donald Trump has certainly changed his view on abortion. He is pro-life now. But, you know, his view evolved over 20 years, not 20 months or 20 minutes. And what I find troubling is when a person changes their view depending on which way the polls go, or changes their speeches depending on where they are geographically. I say the same thing in Manhattan that I do in Muscatine, Iowa. And I just think that if a person is going to be consistent, then you don't change what you say depending on where you are. And quite frankly, if Ted claims that he's the outsider, look at where the money comes from. It's still the Goldman Sachs, Citibank, AIG, hedge fund billionaires that fund Democrats and Republicans. We never get anything different. It's the same policies because when you're a wholly owned subsidiary of corporate interest, when it gets right down to it, that's what you're going to follow.
So Cruz basically to you as a corporatist, and you say follow the money. Let me follow up with more on Trump's situation, continuing not only on the issue of life, but other positions on medicine, single payer, on property rights. There are a lot of questions for Trump. Do you find it confounding that with a conservative base like there is in Iowa, so many people are flocking to Trump's candidacy?
Well, I mean, I think they all ought to be flocking to mine, and that's what I keep saying. Is that I'm the guy that they know, they've trusted. I haven't changed, not just in this election cycle. I mean, my goodness, you can go back to my teenage years and find that my views and positions are consistent. And what I'm hoping for is that between now and Monday night, as is often the case, Iowa voters stop. They kind of shut out all the crazy messages that are coming their way from radio and TV, and they just ask themselves, who do I trust? Who has been consistent, and who do I really believe will represent my best interest? And every 4 years, there's an Iowa surprise. There was 4 years ago and 8 years ago. There was going all the way back to the Jimmy Carter time in the 70s, and I think there's going to be one Monday.
Governor, with only less than a minute remaining, I want to ask you really quick. We've been talking about media coverage. You said you don't blame Trump for that. I want to ask you, do you think Fox has been fair with its coverage of the candidates? You used to be a commentator for Fox.
Well, I don't think any network has been completely fair. I mean, if you look at the amount of time, one analysis was done of CNN back in August, between August the 24th and September 4th in prime time. CNN gave Donald Trump 586 minutes of coverage in that 2-week period. I got 6 seconds of coverage during the same 2-week period. As I've tried to explain to people, look, it's really difficult for people to connect to your message if they never hear it. It's hard for them to hear it if all the time has been taken by one candidate, and that candidate isn't you.
Well, we tried to give you some time on this Friday night here on Newsmax Prime. Governor Mike Huckabee, I know you'll work hard there in all 99 Iowa counties. Good luck to you on Monday, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, JD. You have been fair, and I truly appreciate it. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir. We know you'll have a busy one. Well, we heard what Mike had to say. Agree or disagree? Send us your comments at newsmaxtv.com. Coming back with Ellis Hennigan and Michael Patrick Flanagan.